This passage is so layered for me. It is, I mean, you could interpret and be inspired by it in so many different ways, and that's one of the reasons that we chose it, because even though it's short and on the face of it, it's very clear what's happening in the story part of the, where it fits in the story. Taken by itself, it's very layered, and it can be almost unimaginable possibilities of how to interpret it and be inspired by it. That's how I feel about it. So
You know, I
Many
was
of the
talking.
words have many depths to them.
yeah.
Absolutely.
And it has visuals, and it has emotives, and it has, it just has everything. I just love it.
You know, I was talking to one of my kids after work today. You know, just like, how's the beginning of the school year going from you? What's your favorite class right now? She's like, reading and writing. And she was like, I love those. It frustrates me though when I know what I want to say and I don't have the words.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I kind of feel like that's almost the whole book, A Wrinkle in
It
Time.
is, yeah. Meg
There's these-
struggles with that, don't you think?
Right.
Yeah.
And not just the literal words, but the concepts where you're like, I almost have the concept. It's almost right there in front of me, but I can't quite, process it and get it out in terms that my current human self can
And the one
understand.
Mrs. W who constantly uses quotations to express herself. She can't even find her own words to express stuff. This book is a treasure trove of quotations. If nothing else, read it for the quotations.
That's right.
Because is it Mrs. Who? I can never remember if it's Mrs. Who, or I should just get my book out and see who does the quoting. Or Mrs. What's it? I can't remember.
No, I can't remember either.
I think it's Mrs. Who, but yeah, because she quotes The Tempest and different things. Yeah, it's Mrs. Who. But and I just loved that as a kid. I just loved that idea that even this kind of supernatural being, if you will, this science-y supernatural being, I don't know what to call Mrs. W's, had trouble. They weren't perfect, and I love that Mrs. Who spoke in a lot of quotations, because I was a pretty well-read kid and I recognized a lot of those quotations, and that made me feel good. That made me feel like I was on the right track somehow, so.
Well, the next question that I would like to just toggle into, and that you actually had a great transition for me, Alice, is thinking about Mrs. Who, Mrs. Whatsit, and Mrs. Which. They are non-human mentors, and we are so used to thinking of our human mentors.
Yeah.
I'm curious, who are some of the non-human mentors in your own lives?
Oh.
Well, I've actually given this question some thought. And I think when I was a kid, my non-human mentors were a little strange, because Dopey from Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs was my most favorite little character ever. I just loved Dopey. And if you haven't seen the little, it's not little, it's a full-length feature cartoon film that Disney did. If you haven't seen it in a while, I will remind you that Dopey never speaks. And they even say, one of the other dwarfs even tells Snow White, they don't know if he can speak. He's never tried. So they're not sure if he just chooses not to speak or can't speak. But there was something about his little character that I just fell in love with. And the reason was because he's kind of abused by the other dwarfs. They often make him the butt of the joke. He's kind of like, well, he's always the butt of the joke. He's always they take advantage of him. They, get him to do their dirty work. And again, if you haven't seen the movie in a while, watch it. It's really fun. But he never, ever stops smiling, except for when he's scared. Then he has a scared look on his face. But he's so good natured. He's like this simple, pure little creature. And, because he was a cartoon character, to me, that's not a real human. He wasn't like a real person in this world. He was a cartoon character. And so Dopey was a big inspiration for me. I know that sounds kind of dumb. And then I gotta say that, thinking about what I said about Star Wars before. Yoda is all that for me. I mean, Yoda's probably been I could quote Yoda. I mean, my kids will tell you growing up, I used to talk like Yoda, the back kind of backwards, kind of the back, I love you, I do. I mean, all that kind of stuff. I mean, Yoda's my man or my thing. I don't know what he's not a man. He's a little funny little creature, but definitely a non-human favorite mentor because Yoda had a way of telling, he would make his little philosophical pronouncements and you had to pay attention, and they were always really good, and so in my lifetime, I've kind of thought, well, what would Yoda say about that?
I'm so glad that you explained that because when I saw in our notes in parentheses dopey, I'm like, is the question dopey? So
no, it was to remind me so I didn't forget to tell you about my darling little Dopey. My dearest little Dopey. I just love Dopey. I mean, he was just so good natured, and he would have laid down his life for any of them. Even though you could tell the way Walt Disney had some great animators, and you could tell by the way they animated him. He knew he was the butt of the joke a lot of the times. He knew it was coming before it came. There are certain little scenes where, they tell Snow White, oh no, you go take our bed, we'll sleep downstairs. And there's one pillow and one bench, and he was already on it with the pillow. And then you see him look, and he knows they're going to come and just attack him and take his pillow. And he's like, and then they attack him and take the pillow, and they leave him he has one little feather from the pillow, and he plumps it, puts his little head on it, and goes to sleep. I mean, he knew it was coming. He loves him anyway. I mean, I just thought he was the most remarkable little creature. And his little character was just so sweet, and I just really liked him when I was little.
That's fun.
I didn't want to forget Dopey, so I put him in parentheses.
Deborah, did you have any non-human mentors?
Gosh, I was just going through all of the, I think I had a foot in two different worlds. Number one, I was, as you guys both know, I was raised in extreme Catholicism. So, we always had our role models of the saints as the stories were told to us. And I ended up choosing Bernadette of Lourdes to be my patron saint because she dared. She was, not just because she was chosen, but she dared and she stood firm. And having that strength in adversity, at times of adversity when everybody was against her, just that's where I wanted to that's where I drew my source of strength. Was and then yes, there are layers and layers and layers of the story and all that came, but as a representative of strength. And then I was thinking, as you were going through, Alice, your different movie characters, I'm thinking, okay, what movies did I can remember one movie that I watched every year for, I think as long as they did it every year, was The Wizard of Oz. Yep. Every year I hooked into one of those characters. This is my year of Dorothy, or this is my year of the Scarecrow, or this is my year of, and so
I was going to bring up the Scarecrow too. Yeah, I thought he's a very real non-human character, that really comes out in that movie, much more so than in the books, by the way, but really just jumps out from that movie as something that you don't forget his lines and his behavior and his character for a long time after seeing that movie. Yeah.
Well, I was with that way with every one of the characters because, of what they needed and what they did to get it. That you can't just sit back and wait for it to happen. What they had to do, what tests they had to pass, what hurdles they had to jump. Just that hopefulness behind it. I'm the one that can make these things happen when I want them.
Mm-hmm.
Whether I'm a hollowed out tin man or
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
whatever
Yeah.
the analogy. So that was probably one of those movies. I mean, I knew every word to every song and everything by the second showing,
Mm-hmm.
because I was so obsessed with it. But that guided a lot of my younger
Mm-hmm.
younger ages. And then of course, then it was just anything I could get my hands on.
This is such a
Just,
good
I
question,
was just
though.
really drawn into, and I don't know how my hands found what they found.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Whatever I needed, it came into my hands when I needed it. And so I go through the list, and it's like, okay, yep, check, yep, that person, yep, check, all
Yeah.
of them.
This
And
is such a good question, though, because we do think of mentors and inspirations as being humans. It's easy to think about a huge list of humans that you drew inspiration from, or in your real life mentored you, teachers, or different people you've met along the way. But we don't usually think in terms of non-humans like the Mrs. W's, who are these guides for Meg and Calvin and Charles Wallace in a way. And even their father, and Meg's father, in a way, they're kind of guides, mostly for Meg, I think. But it's hard to come up with. I mean, Sarah E., when you first posed that question, I had to be like, I started, this, and then I'm like, wait, that's a human. Well, no, that's just a favorite character, but that's a human. I had to kind of, well, who's a non-human? And Yoda's probably my best example, because Dopey technically is a little person. He's a cartoon character of a human, but he doesn't come across as a human. He comes across as this little creature that's just adorable and funny, and it's just so.
That counts as an answer. It's
Okay,
legit.
good. Yeah.
Right. Right, absolutely. And I think that the non-humanity being accepted as valuable people is a main theme in this series.
Mm-hmm.
There's all kinds of characters that are not human, that are fully sentient and contributing to the meaningfulness of the universe.
I think that we can have that idea that there's some otherworldly presence, let's put it that way, that can be of great influence and guidance for people. And I love stories, books, movies, whatever, but usually there's a book before I've read the book before I see the movie or something. And I love stories that have those kind of characters in them, because I feel like as a writer, you have a lot more freedom with a non-human character. It's like Aunt Beast is like this thing, this kind of shapeless thing with tentacle. Is it like 4 tentacle arms, and just she's it's just this strange almost octopus-like thing. I don't know, and so I feel like you have a lot more freedom with what your characters can do if they're not human characters. And as a reader, you have the freedom to believe in those supernatural or otherworldly creatures. You believe they can have those powers of healing or of guidance or philosophy or whatever it is, because they're not trapped by the human condition, as it were. And I love that about those kind of stories. So.
Well, the non-human mentor that I have selected in my life are trees.
Oh, good choice.
And by trees, I don't mean the mass of all trees in the world. I mean very specific trees that I befriended that were in my backyard or my grandparents' backyard or the neighbor. But trees, while not sentient, they're old. They seem wise. They can embrace you and hold you as Aunt Beast does. They have personalities. They have texture. And just, spending so much time in there, up in the branches, feeling, safe, having fun, playing, interacting.
What a great example. Yeah.
Yeah.
That makes me think of Grandmother Willow in the Pocahontas Disney. I'm stuck on Disney. I don't know why.
You're in a Disney mood.
But Pocahontas was from my children's, age group, and Grandmother Willow in that little Disney movie just is so important. And you were talking about sheltering and wise and safe, and that's what Grandmother Willow is to Pocahontas. It's her safe spot, safe place. Yeah.
Yep.
Trees.
So what role do trees play in your life now, Sarah?
You know, I really want to climb them more, honestly.
Mhm.
But I would say definitely it's the idea of just going out and walking through and being in that mental and physical and spiritual space. You know, that
They
the
call
idea,
that forest bathing.
I love it.
Join us next time as we continue with our workshop discussion for the 2021 NICE project.